Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Christian, founder and CEO of Cornerstone, and welcome to Behind the Barricade. Here's what we're doing with this podcast. We're looking for performance breakthroughs in construction, the moments where a team actually breaks through and does something that makes you stop and say, that was different. Because the reality is this industry is complex. Timelines are tight. Expectations are high, and productivity has stayed flat for decades. So we go and find the people who are changing that. Today's guest brings a perspective of him wanting to get on the podcast for a while. Tomomi Marzan is the director of retail design at Belmont Park Village, which is the newest addition to Value Retail's portfolio of 12 luxury retail destinations across Europe, China, and now New York City region. And Tomomi's career is fascinating. She started in the architecture of a major project of a major league baseball stadium in Seattle, then moved into retail, the Gap, then Disney, then Nike, then Cole Haan, then Citibank. She's led design and construction teams on both sides of the brand and developer. And here's what makes this episode worth your time. Tomomi walks us through a recent 6,000 square foot retail project at Belmont Park Village, where her team went out for a permit before they even had a brand or tenant input or signed up. Before the ink was dry on the lease. That's a bold move. And she explains exactly why they did it and how it worked. She talks about something she will never do again as a landlord. It involves using the same GC on both sides of the work, and she's got scars from it. And she dropped a line about scheduling that I think every one of us in the industry needs to hear. Realistic and reliable. These two words should be on the wall of every project meeting room. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Tomomi Marzan. Hi, I'm Jim Christian, founder and CEO of Cornerstone, and welcome to Behind the Barricade, a podcast where we explore performance breakthroughs in the construction industry. Because the reality is, this is a complex industry. Projects are challenging, timelines are tight, and expectations that are high. But every once in a while, a team breaks through and does something that makes you stop and say, this is different. This is a different experience. And that's why we have this podcast. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Tomomi Marzan, who is the director of retail design at Belmont Park Village. And I met Tomomi through a friend of ours, and we've had a few conversations, and I'm so excited to have you with us today. And thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. But maybe before we get into performance breakthroughs, could you share with us how you got into the industry and how you got to Belmont Village and kind of what that journey's been like for you?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today.
You're
So,
welcome.
I have an architectural background. After architecture school, I worked for MBBJ, a large architectural firm in Seattle, in their ballpark studio.
Wow.
So, as a young professional, it was absolutely thrilling. But I realized that long and large projects didn't allow me to learn as fast as I wanted. And it was overwhelming because of the scale of the project, as you can imagine, a ballpark
Neat.
and so many people and
Yes.
so much going on. I came into the retail design and construction sector when I joined Gap Inc. in San Francisco.
Okay.
And that was my real, my first real retail job. And it was really the impetus to all that followed behind that. So then I went to work for Disney in Los Angeles. And then also after Disney, a few retail developers, including Macerich, which is where I learned the retail development business as a
Mm.
whole and started to truly understand the landlord versus tenant side of retail construction.
Wow.
So I flipped back and forth between working for brands and then working for developers. And then for brands, I worked for Nike, Uncle Bank, Citibank. I'm leading the design and construction teams. And then to keep things really fun, I switched back to working for a global retail developer, which is where I'm at now at Value Retail, the owner operator of 12 luxury retail destinations in Europe, China, and now in the New York City region at Belmont Park Village. So that's me.
So, as a baseball fan, what stadiums were you involved with?
So it was one stadium in Seattle, and at that time, I forgot the name. I think it was called Safeco Field because
Okay.
Safeco bought the naming rights to it. I think it's called T-Mobile right now. I'm so sorry, I can't remember, but the one in Seattle, yeah.
The Seattle one. Oh, amazing. Amazing. And I've been so intrigued about value retail. I was looking around the website and I can't wait to get to Belmont Park.
I'd
But
love to come.
I'm just kind of thinking, I think this could be a destination to kind of go see when I'm traveling when I get that
Absolutely.
opportunity. It looks amazing. How long has that development been underway?
So it was under works pre-COVID, but in 2020 or so, went out to permit, started construction during the pandemic as well. So it's been a long time coming. I think it's been in the works for I'm going to say probably 10 years because you
Wow.
have to get entitlements. There's a lot of pre-planning involved. I joined Value Retail in 2023, and so I've been here a couple of years, but I definitely wasn't here at the beginning.
Hmm.
But I do feel like I did see the erection of the last steel that went up, the hardscape going in, the landscape going in, and so I definitely saw the project come to life and then open for business in 2024.
That's when it opened in 2024. Wow. Wow. And at the early part of your career, you were all down the West Coast and now you're on the East Coast.
Yes,
What's that transition been like for you?
lots of different types of clothes. Yeah, there's definitely the seasons here in New York. I mean,
Yeah.
I think in terms of professionally too, we're all in the same industries. There isn't much difference in terms of how people work at all. I think the
Right.
West Coast, even though they say it's a little bit more laid back, I'm not gonna say the New York people or the East Coast people are hard nosed. I mean, it's still it's a fun, but it's a thrilling, sector to be in retail design and construction. And I think it doesn't really make a difference where you are in the United
Yeah.
States.
Yeah. Amazing. So when you think about, part of the reason we have this podcast is we are really trying to find real life stories on where performance has been impacted or what were the secret ingredients or special sauces for performance breakthroughs. Because our research has been that performance in construction has been flat
Yeah.
for a couple of decades, despite all the technology stuff that we've experienced and all that's happened. So from your perspective, do you have a project that you'd like to share or about where you saw all the pieces come together in a powerful way?
Absolutely. So, our team just finished a project here at Belmont Park Village, and so I can't name any, brand names or general contractor names. I can go through the process as it was something that was very close to my chest, and followed it all the way through. But what's a good project when you look forward to weekly OAC calls and the banter that happens between everyone? There's tension in these meetings, and without it, it's probably not a good meeting because you need to get uncomfortable to keep things moving. So the project was 6,000 square foot retail space that was a partial turnkey for a well-known global brand. And we started the project with the landlord's architect and we went out for permit. And this was even before, we had the brand or tenants input at all. And the reason why we did that is to get the permitting process started, as it could take 8 to 10 weeks for a permit in this particular jurisdiction. And we wanted to do that so it doesn't become like a checklist item that isn't done and that holds anybody up. We then bought out pre-construction services and bid early as a cost plus project. We
Okay.
identified, long lead items such as electrical, mechanical, and other specialty equipment that we knew needed 4 to 8 weeks for procurement. And again, I know each project is different and there's unique things to Belmont Park Village that we do that are highly special. And again, this is all before we had any brand meetings or tenant meetings or any kind of design input from the brand. So it was
Wow.
definitely at our risk, but it made sense to do so because we had an end goal in mind, which is on the landlord side, the end goal is to deliver possession on a certain date. And that is hard and set. And there are ramifications if you don't make that date.
Right.
So that's why we did all that pre work. But then once we received brand input, we made sure to review landlord's work and tenants' work in pretty good detail to the point where the brand or the tenant, they took it upon themselves to create their own matrix of
Mm.
responsibilities to make sure that they covered their bases with every aspect of the project. And then for them to kind of play it back to us to say, hey, these are your responsibilities as well. And that
Mm.
kind of set the tone. So that was a very good thing that they did. So I would think that we hope that all brands and all tenants do that, but we know that's not always the case. And then after we receive brand input, we have to make major adjustments and amendments to the permit and bid plans. And we knew this was coming, so it was anticipated in the schedule, which actually I'm going to say that is fiction. I just said something false.
That's okay.
I wish we had anticipated
Yeah.
challenges early, but and that's a lesson to be learned is to make sure that you have in your schedule that extra time to make these amendments because they're going to happen. And then after the amendments are made to the plans, the hard work of the changes happen with the schedule and the change orders. And sometimes hopefully deduct change orders as well. And
Right.
that's where the tension rises in the OAC calls or finance calls to work through those change orders. But I think what made the project unique is that we wanted to incorporate as much of the brand's design as possible into the landlord's construction work. And
Mm.
again, this wasn't to be nice or accommodating or anything like that. It was to make sure that once we delivered possession, once the brand or the tenant got into their work, that they opened for business. And
Yeah.
so that as much as we could absorb into our budget and schedule, we did. And so that when that handover was done, they knew what they needed to do. Yeah. So really, in terms of lessons learned, we learned that even if you think you've communicated something, do it again and confirm the understanding. Have them play it back to you. When you're working as the owner landlord, you have all of your consultants, and then you have the general contractor, all of their subcontractors, and then you have your development subs, meaning, we have specialty subcontractors here on site that really need to be attentive to, like sprinkler system, fire alarm. And so you have all those subs to attend to as well. And then you have the tenant work that follows, which is the tenant, their design team, their general contractor, their subs, and then finally their operations and retail team. So this project was definitely one where you needed to know who was doing what and at any given time. So definitely it took a whole village and then some.
Old Belmont Village. So what would that process be like from beginning to the store opening? Like how long of period were you working on that space?
Sure. So because we started early before even, the ink was dry on the lease, we started last July and then we handed over the space to the brand in I think it was late February. So they had about 4 weeks worth of work to do on their side. So yeah, I'm gonna say it's 8-month project or something on our
8 months,
side.
right.
Plus,
Mm,
so I think 9 altogether. And again, that's only because we did things early
mhm.
to make sure that we could deliver possession.
So when you started
Mhm.
with your permit application, you did not have a brand established at that point, or you maybe did you have an idea who the brand was or
Had an idea, yes, but
okay.
again, working with the leasing team, a lot of those leases are on the cusp of being signed,
Mm,
but in anticipation of being signed, you're starting to work because if you don't start, you're just not going to be able to make that possession date.
right. And that possession date and opening date, and that was pretty much established by your team, like you wanted a store open by the end of February, whatever that deadline was?
Yeah, so actually it's at Belmont Park Village or I'm sorry, Valley Retail. We work with our retail team and we have forecasts that we need to meet. And so we realized this particular brand may have had a certain date in mind. We also have a certain date in mind. We work in quarters, like what is opening quarter one, what is opening
Mm,
quarter two. So this particular brand needed to open in quarter one. So
right.
they made it by the end of March, which is the end of quarter one for us.
Amazing, amazing. And when you said it was turnkey in the delivery of the space, but they still had to do their fit out work.
Yes, so, because it was a partial turnkey, the brand also needed to come back for a couple of weeks to install their fixtures, and then
Mm,
this includes, like, wall fixtures, and then also their IT equipment, the burglar alarm system, anything, CCTV, their audio system, it all needed to be installed, and so that's usually not landlord's work, it is tenant's work, and they have their own contractors, they have their own manufacturers and vendors that they work with as well. So,
right.
yeah, that was about 4 weeks worth of work.
So predominantly the space was finished, the floor
Yes,
was in, the walls were constructed as per what their requirements were, ceiling was
100%.
installed
Yep.
and lighting, but the the fixturing components getting
Yes.
ready wasn't. Now, did they happen to use the same GC as you did for the base building, or was it a different GC?
It was different, and actually, I've learned many, many lessons of never to do that again, to use the same general contractor as a landlord, especially when I'm on the tenant side. I never did that because I've been burned where the general contractor starts to get confused as to who they're working for,
Right.
especially when there's overlap in that work.
Right.
So we never recommend that
Okay.
position or recommend that way. This particular brand had their own general contractor come in, and we worked very closely with them as well.
Nice, nice. And when you were having those weekly meetings, once the brand was established, or even maybe before the brand was established, who was around the table? What stakeholders did you have around the table at that point?
Sure. So at the very beginning, pre-lease signature, you've got your leasing people. You also, and again, we're a little bit different. We have a department called retail, which
Right.
really looks over the numbers, and then also, shepherding the brand to be able to get open. And then you have our team, which is design and construction. So
Right.
all of us are at the table. Yes, legal's at the table too because we have a lot of contracts to sign, and then we have, our architect of record, and then our engineers of record. And then also, because we bought out pre-construction services with the general contractor, they're at the table as well.
A team partnership approach to the whole
That's
project.
correct.
That sounds like a good model. Will you do that model again, or is that what you're thinking is maybe follow that again in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And we are working on a couple of projects in that manner.
Mhm.
But I think that in terms of being able to get your stakeholders on one page and getting that out early, especially for schedule, and I
Mm.
would emphasize the schedule part because once you put that schedule together, it's really something that people wanna be rely on, and so that's predictable. In terms of that schedule being a little bit wonky and, updating it weekly, instead, create a real schedule that people can actually sink their teeth into, and so that the different departments, even if they're not designing construction, they know, "Okay, the brand is responsible for giving you this particular piece of information by this date," and that everybody knows, and if that piece of information doesn't come through, then the project may get delayed, there's cost escalations, etc. So I think putting a schedule out there early that is reliable, that hopefully won't move too much, that's the thing that actually is the anchor to, the projects that we're working on.
So you've had a variety of experiences in your career, and I get the sense that pre-construction's a big component to success and productivity. Is that kind of what you've seen through your career?
I do. I think speed to market is definitely something that we all look for, and I think it is a trend. But I think that pre-construction services or hiring a construction manager early in a project is really key. We need cost modeling. Even if you're not bidding the project right away, it's still good to have a construction manager on early to be able to estimate a job more accurately. And I know a lot of firms and a lot of developers have their own, cost people, but if you've got people out there, general contractors that doing this work day in, day out, it really helps to get that input
Mhm.
from their subcontractors, but also just from the database alone. It's really helpful to understand what is the true cost of a project.
Certainly at Cornerstone, we always encourage clients or potential clients, the earlier you can get us involved, the better it is for
Right.
project success. So we would align on that point for sure. So moving from success or where you saw some good things happening, and maybe it's a current project or not a current project, recent project, or even a previous project, when you've seen performance break down and jobs not hit schedule, not hit budget, whatever can happen when things don't go well. Do you have an example of it not working, or maybe a trend that you see when it's not working?
When it's not working, it's really you have to have the hard talks, but really, I think it's just about communication. What we're seeing right now, and I'm not just for the projects that, we do as a landlord or as a developer, but even on the brand side or on the tenant side. But what I've been seeing a lot of is basically laborers or subcontractors really not at the highest level right now. And I'm
Mm,
not sure exactly why, but it's output per labor hour. It doesn't really equate, and so
mm,
we have a lot of tenants and brands that are really struggling with their schedules because they can't motivate their general contractors to keep moving or to accelerate or even just do things on time with the predictability of the quality that is expected. So I think that is definitely something that is being looked at all the time.
Do you have a sense, like, if you were to tear that onion apart, what the root cause of that is? What any sense on why is there so much friction at that level?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of performance, and I think it's just the low productivity. I think it's driven by labor shortage. Even
Mm,
though brands are not, building as much, there's still a labor shortage in different areas, and in New York area too. Yes, contractors are still hungry, but the quality subcontractors, they're busy.
yeah,
And so I do think as an industry at whole, it's really how do we actually rise to the occasion to be able to develop that next generation of talent?
yeah.
How do we actually keep that moving in terms of an engine to get the quality product that we all want?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're seeing that trend as well. It's a challenge. So other than that, um, Tomi, what trends are you paying particular attention to uh, in your role? Is there anything or trends that you're saying, "Oh, I got to pay attention to that"?
Sure. So I think that technology is the biggest one right now with AI
Mm,
technology coming out. Even, in the company I work for now, we're definitely leaning into AI and it's not just for it to take over our jobs, but in the work that I do, I want to automate some things, maybe something that I've drafted. I really want it to put it through AI to see how I can improve it. And like schedules will put into AI as well. So
right.
again, maybe it's not 100% AI, maybe it's other technologies that I don't know of, but I know, contractors, architects, they all use different types of technology. So it's really that technology that adoption has gone from more like experimentation to real execution. Like how do we
Mm,
actually use it to execute? And so I think as a trend, contractors are prioritizing integrating systems that really connect the job costing, scheduling, labor tracking, and then field work, field operations. And so that the information is complete in terms of data to be able to do a real good project.
would you have any advice as an industry, what we should be paying attention to or what problems we should be solving?
I think I've stated this before. I think it's labor shortage, and so that we're not getting the quality subcontractors right now. I think that the speed to market is a big trend. But again, in terms of over promising an accelerated schedule, that really isn't going to do anybody any good. So don't
Right.
give us schedules that are a pie in the sky. Get relatable, make it reliable, and I think with that reliable schedule, without overpromising, you're able to identify risks early and then be realistic. And then you can also defend your schedule that way too.
I love the reliable, realistic, and yet another one there, reliable, realistic, and
Principle.
yeah, yeah, those are lenses that we should be looking at schedules and projects through. I think that's very wise. As we wrap up, Tomomi, do you have anything else that you would like to share? Anything that you've felt you wanted to talk about today?
I think collaboration early on with contractors is awesome. I've learned just so much just doing that in the last couple of years. Just getting the team together early, I think
Mm,
is just so instrumental to delivering a project that it really shines at the end. You're aligning your best subcontractors because your contractor knows what you want at the end. So all of that pre-work is so, so, so important. And
mm.
so for me, that's my biggest lesson to be learned over the last couple of years is just get your teams together early, make sure that everybody understands the scope of work and that everybody understands what outcome is expected of that project.
We define success at the end, right? Then get everybody pointing in the same direction. Sometimes I feel projects can get off track because people lose track of what the end goal is. Getting the space open, getting the cash register going, or getting people moved into a commercial space, whatever that is. Well, thanks so much, Tomomi, for joining us. It's been a great conversation and really appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective and insights and experience. And I know you have a busy calendar, so appreciate you taking the time. If someone wanted to reach out to you to talk, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Sure. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you were to look me up on LinkedIn as Tomomi Marzan, I will show up and please LinkedIn with me.
Awesome. Well, just to everyone that's listening, thanks for tuning in to Behind the Barricade. At Cornerstone, we believe construction is more than just delivering projects. It's about creating a better journey for our clients, our staff, our project partners, and ultimately the world. And that's why we developed this podcast. We hope you're finding these conversations helpful and may lead you to thinking differently about performance and what's possible on projects. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. But what a great conversation with Tomomi. A few things I want you to take away from this one. First, her approach to that Belmont Park Village project was a masterclass on pre-construction. Her team filed for permits, bought out pre-construction services, identified long lead items before they even had the brand's input, before the lease was signed. And yes, there was a risk in that. But because they had a hard possession date with real ramifications, made the call to move early. That's how you protect a project schedule that can't slip. And it's a lesson that applies whether you're on the landlord side or the brand side. Second, Tomomi shared a hard-won lesson about using the same general contractor for both the landlord work and the tenant work. Don't do it, she warns. She's been burned on this more than once, and the reason is simple. When the GC is working for both sides, they get confused about who they're accountable to, especially when there's overlap. If you're a brand going into a turnkey space, bring your own GC. It's the best way to move forward, in her opinion. And the third, her line on schedules really stuck with me. Realistic and reliable. Wow, wouldn't our projects all be better if those two words were embedded into her schedules? Don't hand over a pie-in-the-sky timeline that everyone pretends to believe. Put together a schedule that people can actually sink their teeth into. One that becomes the anchor for the entire project. That's how you create accountability across every stakeholder, including the ones who aren't in the design or construction. If this episode gave you something worth thinking about, something to bring back to your next project meeting, I'd really appreciate if you take 30 seconds and leave a rating or a quick review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. It sounds small, but reviews are genuinely how new listeners in our industry find the show. And the more people we can get around these conversations, the better all of our projects will get. This is Behind the Barricade, brought to you by Cornerstone, where we're dedicated to creating a better journey for our clients, our staff, our project partners, and ultimately the world. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.